You know, sometimes you come across a story from history that just feels, well, too epic to be true. A story packed with power, betrayal, unbelievable hardship, and then somehow total redemption. Well, today we're diving into the life of a 13th century queen whose journey is one for the ages.
So this is her. This is Theodora Petralifaina. Her face, captured forever in this icon, it tells a story of real grace and strength. But long before she was a saint, she was a queen, a wife, and a mother who was forced to go through the absolute worst kind of betrayal.
I mean, think about it. What do you do when you lose it all? It's a terrifying question, and it's one Theodora was forced to answer head-on. Her story really makes you think about what power, resilience, and faith truly mean. So let's start at the very beginning, at the height of her power, to really understand just how far she had to fall. Okay, so to really get the impact of her fall, we've got to see just how high she started. Her life began right at the very center of Byzantine power and prestige.
Yeah, Theodora wasn't just anybody. She was born into the Petraleiphas family, a super powerful aristocratic clan. Her father held this incredibly high title, Sebastokrator, which was a rank just one step below the emperor himself. So from the moment she was born, she was a huge political asset, destined for a life of influence.
And this was the world she was born into. See, after the Fourth Crusade basically wrecked Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire kind of shattered into pieces. The Despotate of Epirus, where our story is set, popped up as this key Greek stronghold, a real beacon of power and resistance.
So, as a young woman, probably around the year 1231, Theodora makes the most important alliance of her life. She marries Michael II, the guy in charge of Epirus. This marriage locked in alliances and put her right on the throne as queen. Her future looked totally secure.
But you know how these stories go. That security, it turned out to be a total illusion. Just as she was getting used to being queen and starting a family, her whole world was about to be viciously torn apart.
And the betrayal? Oh man, it came from the one person she should have been able to trust, her own husband. Michael became completely obsessed with another woman at court, a lady named Grain Rain. And in this just shocking act of cruelty, he didn't just take a mistress, he kicked his own wife, Theodora, who was pregnant with their first son, right out of the palace.
Just try to put yourself in her shoes for a second. One day, you're a queen. The next, you're homeless and an outcast. She lost her home, her status, her security, her husband, all of it in one brutal move.
For 5 long years, her life was an absolute nightmare. The historical accounts tell us she literally wandered the countryside in rags, eating wild herbs just to stay alive. And in these horrible conditions, she gave birth to her son Nikephoros. Finally, a village priest recognized her and, risking the king's anger, gave her a place to stay.
But here's what is absolutely incredible about her. Even after being wronged so horribly, her faith never broke. She prayed, not just for herself, but for the soul of the very man who'd thrown her out. This deep, unshakable piety would become the foundation of her entire legacy.
Now this is where her story could have just ended, right? A sad little footnote in a history book. But nope, not even close. Because the people of Arta had been watching all of this go down, and their anger was about to change everything.
After 5 years, the nobles and the regular people of Arta had just had enough of Michael's behavior and his mistress's arrogance. They actually rose up and demanded that their true queen be brought back. Facing a full-on revolt, Michael had no choice. He went to Theodora, begged her to forgive him, and she was welcomed back to the city not as a failure, but as a total hero.
I mean, for the people of Artala, the choice couldn't have been clearer. On one side, you have Theodora, who handled all her suffering with piety and grace. On the other, you have the mistress, Gangrene, living it up in luxury and looking down on everyone. It was a no-brainer. They chose the queen who had proven who she really was through all that hardship.
So she walked back into that palace, but not with revenge on her mind. She wanted peace. Her suffering had completely transformed her in the eyes of her people. She wasn't just some political figure anymore. Her incredible faith had become a source of immense popular power, making her a beloved and respected leader.
Her return to power wasn't just about getting the crown back. It was the start of a whole new chapter, one where she would use her influence to build a legacy of piety that would eventually make her a saint.
Back at her husband's side, she became his most trusted advisor, basically a co-ruler. While Michael was off fighting wars, Theodora was focused on taking care of their people. She was famous for her charity, setting up shelters for the poor and the suffering. Her biggest accomplishment was founding the monastery of St. George in Arta, a center of faith that's actually still standing today.
And how do we know all these details? Well, it's thanks to text just like this one. It's a special kind of biography called a hagiography. Basically, a life of a saint, written by a monk named Job. These accounts save the memory of her piety, her suffering, and her forgiveness, securing her place in history.
After her husband Michael died, Theodora decided to leave the royal court behind for good. She went to the very monastery she had founded, traded in her royal robes for a simple nun's habit, and dedicated the rest of her life completely to God.
And when she passed away, she was buried in that monastery. Her tomb, which you can see in this amazing sculpture, almost immediately became a site of pilgrimage. People started reporting miracles happening there, and it wasn't long before the Orthodox Church officially recognized her as a saint. Her incredible journey from queen to outcast and finally to saint was complete.
Theodora's life really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? She held the power of a queen twice, but her most lasting strength wasn't in her title or her crown. It was in her resilience, her ability to endure so much suffering, and her incredible capacity to forgive the very person who had hurt her the most. Now that's a lesson that still matters today.